Welcome to the neutral ground. Let's just dive right in because honestly, this is infuriating. Donald Trump posts this garbage on Truth Social with a picture. I'm just going to read it. This is the hand of the man that the Democrats feel should be brought back to the United States because he is such a fine and innocent person. They said he is not a member of MS-13, even though he's got MS-13 tattooed onto his knuckles. And two highly respected courts found that he was a member of MS-13, beat up his wife, etc. I was elected to take bad people out of the United States, among other things. I must be allowed to do my job, make America great again.
Okay, wow. Just let's take a breath and unpack that, because every single part of that statement is, well, it's either a gross distortion or just an outright lie.
It's designed to scare people, right? Demonize this one guy.
Totally. Such a fine and innocent person. I mean, the sarcasm is practically dripping. Then the whole MS-13 tattoo thing on his knuckles. We'll get to that. It's nonsense.
And the two highly respected courts.
Complete fabrication of what actually happened in court. A flat-out lie. And dredging up the stuff about his wife. Dismissed civil stuff. It's just a disgusting smear tactic.
Because they got caught doing something illegal?
Exactly. They illegally deported this man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a real person, and then they try to justify it with this crap.
And it's not just us saying it was illegal. The Trump administration themselves admitted in court filings it was an administrative error. Their words.
An administrative error. And oopsie, yeah, that sends a guy who had legal protection against being sent back to El Salvador, straight into this hellhole prison there.
CECOT. We'll talk about that place. It's horrifying.
And this is after U.S. courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court, basically told them, fix your damn mistake, bring him back.
But instead of fixing it, they doubled down on the lies. They broke the law, they got caught, and now they're just throwing mud, hoping something sticks because the truth makes them look awful. Authoritarian.
Thugs, really. Absolutely.
Okay.
So let's talk about who Kilmar Abrego Garcia actually is.
Yeah.
Behind the rhetoric, he's 29. Came here from El Salvador when he was about 16, fled because the Barrio 18 gang was threatening him and his family.
Not MS-13, note, Barrio 18.
Right. Different gang. We're talking extortion, death threats against his family, threats against him, his sisters. This isn't just a story he made up. It's documented. It's in his immigration case files. He was seeking safety.
And he built a life here, didn't he? He wasn't hiding. Lived in Maryland.
Yep, Maryland.
Yeah.
Worked construction, sheet metal apprentice, paid taxes, you know, the whole deal.
Married a U.S. citizen, Jennifer Vasquez-Sura.
Right. And they have a young son together who's a U.S. citizen. The son has autism, other disabilities. Needs a lot of care. Garcia helped care for him, and also his wife's other kids who have special needs.
So this is the guy Trump paints as this monster who needs to be taken out. It's sickening. It really is.
And here's the absolute core of it. The legal part Trump just ignores. In October 2019, immigration judge David M. Jones granted Garcia withholding of removal.
Okay, what does that mean exactly? Withholding of removal.
It's a crucial legal protection. It's binding under U.S. law, international treaties too. It means the U.S. government itself, through its court system, determined he could not be legally sent back to El Salvador.
Why?
Because he had a well-founded fear of persecution or torture there. From Barrio 18, the same gang he fled from years ago.
And did the Trump administration fight this ruling back in 2019?
No. That's the kicker. Trump's own DHS did not appeal Judge Jones's decision. They accepted it. It became final. Legally binding. Undisputed.
So let me get this straight. There was a final U.S. court order saying, do not deport this man to El Salvador, period.
Period. Explicitly prohibited. As of March 2025, that order was fully in effect.
And what did they do?
They arrested him, put him on a plane, and sent him straight to El Salvador. A direct, blatant violation of that court order.
It defies logic. Using gang allegations to justify sending him back to the country where he was threatened by a gang?
The hypocrisy is, well, it's staggering. It makes no sense unless the goal was simply deportation at any cost, regardless of the law.
Okay, so let's tear apart that first big lie. Two highly respected courts found he was a member of MS-13.
This is maybe the most deliberate distortion. There were immigration proceedings, yes, but no court, zero courts, found he was MS-13 after a full trial on the merits of that claim. It just didn't happen.
So where does the two courts thing come from?
Okay, first, back in 2019, he had a bond hearing. Different thing entirely. Before immigration judge Elizabeth Kessler, local cops say he's verified MS-13. This was after some arrests at a Home Depot.
But a bond hearing isn't a trial, right? It's just about whether you let someone out while their main case is pending.
Exactly. The standard is different. The burden is on the detainee to prove they aren't a danger or flight risk. It's tilted against them. Judge Kessler denied bond. She mentioned the police claim, which itself was based on, like, a confidential informant who wasn't even cross-examined.
So she didn't rule he is MS-13.
No. She made no definitive finding on membership after a proper hearing. It was just about detention during the process. They're conflating a preliminary step with a final judgment. It's dishonest.
And the police claim itself? What was that based on?
Oh, get this. The evidence from the 2019 Home Depot arrest. He was apparently wearing a Chicago Bulls hat.
A Bulls hat?
And a hoodie, which the cops said was, quote, indicative of the Hispanic gang culture. I mean, seriously.
That's just racist profiling.
It sounds like it. Then there was this supposed proven and reliable confidential informant. Claimed Garcia was in an MS-13 clique in Long Island, New York. Never lived there. It makes no sense.
Unbelievable.
And wait, there's more. The cop, the Prince George's County detective who wrote the actual gang field interview sheet, Ivan Mendez, he was later fired for misconduct. In a totally separate case, but still.
So the source of the gang allegation is a discredited cop basing it on flimsy stuff and an informant pointing to the wrong state.
Pretty much sums it up. And Garcia's name wasn't even in the initial police report from that Home Depot thing. The gang label got slapped on later in that separate gang sheet.
Okay, so that's court number 1, the bond hearing. What's the second court Trump mentions?
That would be the Board of Immigration Appeals, the BIA. They upheld Judge Kessler's bond denial. It was a brief, like 2-page opinion. Nothing extensive.
Only about the bond denial.
Only about bond. Not a final determination on MS-13 membership.
Yeah.
Not about whether he could ultimately be deported.
So after all that bond stuff, what happened with his actual deportation case?
Right. That went to Judge David M. Jones. He held the proper hearings, heard testimony, looked at all the evidence, including those earlier shaky gang allegations, and he found Garcia credible.
And he granted the withholding of removal?
Yes. Protecting him from deportation to El Salvador. That was the final legally binding decision on that specific issue, the one the Trump administration just decided to ignore.
So the whole 2 courts found he was MS-13 line is just, it's a lie. It conflates a preliminary hearing based on nonsense with the final ruling that actually protected him.
It's a complete fabrication. And let's be clear. Kilmar Garcia has never been charged with, let alone convicted of, any crime in the United States.
Yeah.
This MS-13 label is pure suspicion, questionable sources, never proven in any real way.
Okay, what about the photo? The hand tattoos Trump posted. Skull, cross, smiley face, marijuana leaf. That's the proof, right?
Yeah, the visual proof, which is also ridiculous. Tattoos are not definitive proof of gang membership.
This administration seems obsessed with tattoos, though. Didn't they use them to deport Venezuelans, claiming they were gang members?
Oh, yeah. Remember that, claiming guys were in Trinidad based on tattoos of, like, a clock with their daughter's birth time, a hummingbird, a soccer logo, an autism awareness ribbon. It's utterly absurd.
Experts say tattoos aren't reliable markers, right? Even cops admit it.
Absolutely. Tattoos are notoriously unreliable. Some gangs avoid them for secrecy. MS-13 tattoos, when they exist, often actually say MS or 13, not just random images.
And couldn't tattoos be forced on someone?
That's another critical point. Forced tattooing happens. A tattoo doesn't automatically mean you volunteered for the gang.
So did the government ever present actual evidence in court linking these specific knuckle tattoos to MS-13 in Garcia's case?
No, never. The 2019 police documents mentioned different alleged tattoos, skulls covering eye, ears, mouth, a devil on the leg stuff seen on other people, or just like interpreted from clothing, not these specific knuckle tattoos.
So where did the picture of the knuckle tattoos come from?
It seems they only surfaced after he was deported, part of this smear campaign. His wife apparently recognized him in photos from the Salvadoran prison, and then suddenly these knuckle tattoo photos appear in the administration's propaganda.
It's just propaganda then, a visual shortcut to prejudice. Ignore the facts, ignore the law, just show a picture of tattoos on a Latino immigrant and hope people assume the worst. It's disgusting.
Pure manipulation, designed to bypass due process and facts.
Okay, the last smear. Trump says he beat up his wife, etc. What's that about?
Right. This refers to temporary protective orders. His wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, sought them back in 2020 and again in May 2021. These are civil court things, years ago.
Are the allegations serious?
The 2021 petition included serious claims, yes. Punching, scratching, ripped clothes, grabbing her arm, said she feared for her safety, mentioned photos and videos apparently.
Okay, that sounds bad.
It does. But here's the crucial context Trump leaves out. Jennifer, his wife, did not pursue final protective orders in either case. Both cases were dismissed. Why? because she didn't show up for the final hearings.
Did she say why she didn't follow through?
Yes. She gave a statement later, said she filed them kind of preemptively, out of caution after a disagreement because she had a history of experiencing domestic violence in the past, but she said things didn't escalate further with Garcia. They talked it through, got counseling privately, and their marriage actually got stronger after that.
And now she's fighting for him.
She is his biggest advocate. Since he was illegally deported, she's been desperately trying to get him back, denying the MS-13 claims, talking about the impact on their family, their son.
So what did the Trump administration do with these dismissed civil protection orders from years ago?
They leaked them.
Yeah.
Or posted them. Weaponized this private family matter for a public smear campaign after they'd already illegally deported him. DHS tweeted about it. The White House press secretary literally waved the documents around at a briefing, calling him a woman beater.
So not only are Democrats rushing to defend an illegal criminal foreign terrorist gang member, but also an apparent woman beater.
After the illegal act, to try and justify it retroactively.
Precisely. It's a classic ad hominem attack. Distract from their own law-breaking by smearing the victim. Legally, these dismissed civil orders from years ago have absolutely zero bearing on the legality of the March 2025 deportation, which, again, violated the 2019 withholding of removal order.
It's a direct middle finger to the court system. It wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. A direct violation of a federal court order.
And their excuse, we talked about it, administrative error, which is just complete and utter bullshit.
How do we know it's bullshit?
Because of their own court filings. They admitted in writing to the court that ICE was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador. But, well, they deported him anyway. They knew. They flat out knew about the order.
It wasn't an error. It was deliberate.
It had to be. Look at the statement from the ICE Acting Field Office Director, Robert Cerna. It's legally incoherent. He talks about Garcia having a final order of removal. Yeah. Okay, true. But completely ignores the withholding protection that was part of that same legal framework, specifically barring removal to El Salvador.
And he brings up the MS-13 stuff again.
Yeah, the purported membership, which is irrelevant. Even if they believed he was MS-13, which wasn't proven, it doesn't magically erase the court order protecting him from deportation to El Salvador.
If they genuinely thought he was a danger after the 2019 ruling, they had legal options.
They could have appealed Judge Jones's 2019 decision way back then. They didn't. If they got new evidence later, they could have filed a motion to reopen his case. They didn't. They could have potentially tried to deport him to a different country, not El Salvador. They didn't.
Instead, they just ignored the court order, broke the law.
Chose the illegal route. And you have to see this in context. The administration's whole push for mass deportations using things like the Alien Enemies Act against Venezuelans based on flimsy tattoo evidence, often sending them to El Salvador too under some deal with Bukele. This error looks less like an error and more like part of a pattern.
So this deportation was illegal under U.S. immigration law, the withholding statute. It violated a specific court order, violated his due process, and likely violated international law, too.
Yeah, the principle of non-refoulement, not sending people back to a place where they face danger, torture, persecution. They checked all those boxes of illegality.
And where did this administrative error send him?
To hell, basically, to CECOT.
And the conditions inside.
By Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, UN officials, Garcia himself told Senator Van Hollen about it. We're talking insane overcrowding, hundreds crammed into cells meant for 80 or 100. People sleeping, standing up.
My God.
Filth, disease running rampant, TB, scabies, barely any food or water. Sanitation, virtually non-existent. A couple of toilets for hundreds of inmates.
There's violence.
Systematic torture. Beatings are common. Ill treatment is the norm. Medical care, forget it. People suffer and die from lack of care. They're held largely incommunicado, no contact with family, no lawyers, mass legal proceedings held online, totally meaningless. Punishment cells that are just tiny, dark, windowless boxes.
It's like a concentration camp, a death camp. Didn't a UN official call it something like that?
Words like that have been used, yes. It's complete dehumanization. It's absolutely cruel and unusual punishment by any standard. And the U.S. government sent him right into that abyss.
And there are suggestions the U.S. might be paying El Salvador for this.
Garcia's lawyers have raised that possibility, yeah, that the U.S. might be footing the bill for his imprisonment there. And meanwhile, Donald Trump is out there publicly praising Bukele, reportedly asking for more mega prisons here.
Demanded the people wanted to change everything, and they wanted to. He demanded, they love you, they love what you do. Well, you know, I'm not your supporter. I want him to do, you know, for homegrown criminals next. Yeah. I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's fair. All right? It's not big enough.
So the administrative error excuse just evaporates. They knew or should have known what CECOT is like. Our own State Department has documented the human rights catastrophe under Bukele. Sending him there looks like complicity in brutality.
It makes the error claim utterly unbelievable, utterly indefensible.
So after they illegally deport him into this hellhole, what was the administration's response when they got called out in court? Did they try to fix it?
No, not at all. Their response was basically legal stonewalling, public gaslighting, and total defiance of the courts.
What did the judge say? Judge Sinas, right?
Yeah, Federal District Judge Paula Sinas. She wasn't having it. She ordered the administration repeatedly to facilitate and effectuate Garcia's return, demanded daily updates.
And did they comply?
Barely. They gave vague, non-committal responses, dragged their feet. Judge Sinas had to rebuke them multiple times for obstruction. Eventually, she ordered top government officials to personally show up in court and testify under oath about what they were doing or not doing.
And then it went to the Supreme Court.
Yes. And the Supreme Court ruled, reportedly, it was unanimous, telling the administration they had to facilitate his return. A clear order.
So finally they had to comply, right? Supreme Court order.
You'd think. But what did they do? They launched a public disinformation campaign.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member, and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country. And when Kilmar Abrego Garcia was originally arrested, he was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money covering the ears, mouth, and eyes of presidents on various currency denominations. This is a known MS-13 gang symbol of hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. Abrego Garcia was also arrested with 2 other well-known members of the vicious MS-13 gang. And 2 separate judges found that Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, and that finding has never been disputed.
Top officials like Stephen Miller went out and falsely claimed the Supreme Court had actually sided with the White House.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into our
country. There's a fascination.
They would love it.
They're
sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point.
What? They lied about a Supreme Court ruling.
Yes. And then Attorney General Pam Bondi held a press conference and claimed the U.S. would only provide a plane if El Salvador decided on its own to return Garcia.
Well, he is an illegal alien who has been living illegally in our country from El Salvador. ICE testified. An immigration judge ruled he was a member of MS-13. An appellate judge ruled he was a member of MS-13. Hard stop. He should not be in our country. He was deported. They needed one additional step in paperwork, but now MS-13 is characterized as they should be, as an FTO, as a foreign terrorist organization. So he is not coming back to our country. President Bukele said he was not sending him back. That's the end of the story. If he wanted to send him back, we would give him a plane ride back. There was no situation ever where he was going to stay in this country. None. He would have come back, had one extra step of paperwork, and gone back again. but he's from El Salvador, he's in El Salvador, and that's where the president plans on keeping him.
Completely misrepresenting what the Supreme Court had ordered them to do.
Unbelievable. Admitting the error in court when forced, but publicly lying, denying responsibility, doubling down on the smears.
Institutional gaslighting. And using his private life, to dismiss protective orders, as a weapon. While all this is happening, Bukele's government in El Salvador is playing along, meeting with Trump, trolling Senator Van Hollen on social media, publicly stating Garcia would stay in Salvadoran custody, creating this perfect jurisdictional black hole.
It's collusion, basically. Contempt for U.S. judges, lying about the Supreme Court, coordinating with a regime known for human rights abuses.
It shows an executive branch that thinks it's above the law, that political narratives and cruelty matter more than legal obligations, court orders, or human rights. It's a fundamental assault on the rule of law.
This whole case, it's just a chilling warning, isn't it, about how easily fundamental principles can be eroded.
Absolutely. It shows a willingness to just ignore court orders when they're inconvenient, to trample due process, to use the flimsiest, most prejudiced evidence, a hat, a tattoo, to label someone and strip away their rights. It shows the danger of unchecked executive power driven by cruelty.
And the question it leaves is terrifying. If a specific court order protecting one specific person can just be ignored like this, who's next? What does the rule of law even mean if it can be tossed aside whenever it's politically expedient?
The bottom line is clear. Kilmar Abrego Garcia must be returned to the United States immediately. He needs to be back under U.S. legal jurisdiction. If the government genuinely believes they have a legitimate case against him for something, they need to present it properly in a U.S. court with actual evidence and due process, not through illegal deportation and character assassination.
This wasn't just a mistake. This was an administration that broke the law, got caught red-handed, and then resorted to lies, deflection, smearing a man's character, and defying the entire judicial system to try and cover their tracks and avoid accountability.
It's profound contempt for the courts, for the truth, for basic human dignity, and for the legal principles that are supposed to protect everyone, not just the politically favored.
The sources, as always, are in the show notes. Please go read them, see it for yourself. And if you want to support the kind of work we do here, the hard-hitting analysis, the truth-telling, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/theneutralground.
We really appreciate your support.
Thanks for listening.